My name is Michael. I live in a serene countryside town where I work as a veterinarian. This town is known for its close-knit community and picturesque landscapes with rolling hills and lush green fields stretching as far as the eye can see. At 40, I have been married to Sarah, who is 37, for 15 years. We do not have children, but we share a deep bond and a mutual love for animals. We live on a small farm with several pets, including our 2 dogs, Max and Bella, and a few chickens. Our life here is simple and fulfilling. The morning sun casts a golden hue over our fields, waking us with its warm embrace. Birds chirp merrily as I prepare for the day, feeding the animals and checking on the livestock. Sarah, meanwhile, tends to her beloved garden, her hands gently coaxing life from the soil. The smell of fresh coffee brewing in the kitchen mingles with the scent of blooming flowers, creating a comforting aroma that fills our home. Sarah and I have always had a strong connection, built on mutual respect and shared dreams. Our life together has been a tapestry of love, laughter, and companionship. We have spent countless evenings on our porch, watching the sunset, and talking about our day, our future, and the simple joys of life. These moments have been the cornerstone of our relationship, grounding us in a shared sense of purpose and contentment. In the evenings, after a long day of work, we sit together on the porch swing, the cool breeze carrying the sounds of nature. We talk about our dreams, our plans for the future, and the little moments that made us smile. Sarah's laughter is a melody that harmonizes with the rustling leaves, a sound that has always brought me comfort and joy. Her eyes sparkle with a warmth that matches the setting sun, and I feel grateful for the life we have built together. Our farm is a reflection of our shared love for animals and nature. The barn, painted a cheerful red, stands proudly against the backdrop of verdant fields. Inside, our horses whinny softly, eager for their evening feed. The chickens cluck contentedly in their coop, while Max and Bella romp around, their tails wagging with boundless energy. Each day is a testament to the life we have created, a life filled with love, hard work, and mutual respect. But over the past few months, things have started to change. Sarah has become increasingly distant. She spends more and more time at the local horseback riding club, often attending evening rides and events. Initially, I thought it was just a new hobby, something to keep her occupied. Sarah has always had a passion for horses, and the riding club seemed like a natural extension of that interest. I encouraged her to pursue it, believing it would bring her joy and fulfillment. As weeks turned into months, I began to feel a growing sense of unease. Sarah seemed distracted, her mind always elsewhere. Our conversations grew shorter, and our shared moments became rare. The evenings we once spent together were now filled with silence, as Sarah would retreat to her room or head out to the riding club. I found myself alone on the porch, watching the sunset without her, the warmth of her presence replaced by a cold emptiness. I tried to talk to her about it, but she would brush off my concerns with a dismissive wave of her hand. "I am just busy with the riding club," she would say, her voice lacking the warmth it once held. There is nothing to worry about. But I could see the distance in her eyes, a barrier that seemed to grow thicker with each passing day. The laughter we once shared was now a rare occurrence, replaced by a strained silence that hung heavy in the air. Despite my growing unease, I tried to remain supportive. I wanted Sarah to be happy, and if the riding club brought her joy, I was willing to overlook my own feelings of loneliness and isolation. I threw myself into my work, hoping to distract myself from the nagging doubts that plagued my mind. The animals needed my attention, and I found solace in their uncomplicated presence. Yet as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the distance between us only grew. Sarah began to spend more nights away from home, claiming she was attending late-night events or helping out at the club. I wanted to believe her, but the seeds of doubt had already been planted, and they began to take root, growing into a tangled web of suspicion and fear. Our once harmonious life now felt like a fragile facade, a delicate structure on the verge of collapse. I could feel the cracks forming, threatening to shatter the foundation of our relationship. The love and laughter that had once filled our home were now replaced by an uneasy silence, a void that seemed impossible to fill. As I lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, I wondered what had changed. What had caused this rift between us? The answers eluded me, slipping through my fingers like sand. All I knew was that something was wrong, and I was determined to find out what it was. I decided to investigate, to uncover the truth behind Sarah's increasing distance. It was a decision born out of desperation, a last-ditch effort to save our marriage and restore the bond we once shared. Little did I know that my search for answers would lead me down a path of heartbreak and betrayal, a journey that would test the very core of my being. In the end, our idyllic life in the countryside would be forever changed, leaving me to pick up the pieces and rebuild my shattered world. The journey would be long and arduous, filled with moments of doubt and despair. But through it all, I would discover a strength I never knew I had, a resilience that would guide me towards healing and renewal. And so, with a heavy heart and a determined spirit, I set out to uncover the truth, unaware of the trials that lay ahead. My journey had just begun, and the road to understanding and acceptance would be fraught with challenges. But I was ready to face them, ready to fight for the life and love I held dear. Sarah's increasing absence from home was becoming impossible to ignore. She had always enjoyed horseback riding, but her sudden obsession with the riding club was unusual. Our conversations, once filled with warmth and laughter, were now reduced to monosyllabic exchanges. The distance between us was growing, and I could not shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. One evening, after another lonely dinner, I decided to take a closer look at Sarah's activities. I noticed she was spending a lot of time on her phone, smiling at messages she would never share with me. She would leave the house dressed impeccably, claiming she was going to the riding club. This particular evening, she left in a rush, telling me she would be back late. My unease grew, and I decided to follow her. I got into my car and drove to the riding club, hoping to see Sarah there. Her car was parked outside, but there was no sign of her. I walked around the club, peering into the stables and the main building, but she was nowhere to be found. My heart pounded in my chest as I tried to make sense of the situation. Where could she be, if not at the club? As I stood there, a familiar voice broke the silence. "Michael, what are you doing here?" It was John, one of the club members. I quickly composed myself and replied, "Just came to check on Sarah. Have you seen her around?" John looked puzzled. "She left a while ago with Tom," he said. "They seemed to be in a hurry." Tom. The name was like a jolt to my system. I had seen Tom around town, a charming man who had recently moved in. He was popular, always surrounded by people. The thought of Sarah being with him made my blood run cold. I thanked John and hurried back to my car, determined to find out more. Driving around town, I spotted Tom's car parked outside a small, cozy café on the outskirts. I parked my car a distance away and watched. A few minutes later, Sarah and Tom walked out, laughing and talking intimately. The sight of them together was a punch to the gut. My heart ached with betrayal as I watched them leave the café and drive off together. I followed them discreetly, trying to stay out of sight. They drove to a nearby park where they sat on a bench, their heads close together. From my vantage point, I could see Sarah's face lit up with a smile I had not seen in months. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. She was happy with him in a way she no longer was with me. My hands shook as I took out my phone and snapped a few photos. I needed evidence, proof of what I was witnessing. The betrayal was like a physical pain, a gnawing ache that would not go away. I watched them for a while longer, my heart heavy with sorrow, before deciding to leave. I could not confront them yet. I needed to understand the extent of this relationship. Over the next few days, I became a shadow, following Sarah whenever she left the house. Each time she met Tom at different places, the park, the bookstore, even a secluded spot by the river. They would talk and laugh, their intimacy evident in every gesture. My suspicion turned to certainty. Sarah was having an affair. One evening, I followed them to a secluded cabin in the woods. It was a place I had never seen before, hidden away from prying eyes. I watched from a distance as they entered the cabin together, their bodies close. My heart shattered into a million pieces. This was the confirmation I dreaded. My wife was unfaithful. I took more photos and videos, documenting their time together. The evidence was irrefutable. Sarah and Tom were more than just friends. They were lovers. The pain of betrayal was overwhelming, but I knew I had to remain calm and collected. Confronting them now would accomplish nothing. I needed to gather all the evidence and plan my next steps carefully. Returning home that night was one of the hardest things I had ever done. The house felt empty, a shell of the life we once shared. I sat on the porch, the weight of the world on my shoulders, trying to process the enormity of what I had discovered. Sarah was not the woman I thought she was. Our marriage, our life together, was built on lies. In the days that followed, I continued to gather evidence. I watched Sarah and Tom's interactions, noting every detail. The more I saw, the deeper my heartbreak became. But I also felt a growing resolve. I would not let this betrayal destroy me. I would protect my interests and ensure that I came out of this with my dignity intact. The day had finally come for me to take action. After gathering all the evidence of Sarah's infidelity, I contacted a divorce lawyer and presented everything. The photos, the videos, the texts, they painted a clear picture of her betrayal. My lawyer, a calm and composed woman named Laura, assured me that I had a strong case. We began the process of filing for divorce, and I felt a mixture of sadness and relief. I decided to keep my knowledge of the affair hidden from Sarah, acting as if nothing had changed. Each day, I maintained the facade of a loving husband, all the while knowing our marriage was over. It was a painful charade, but I needed time to protect my interests and prepare for the legal proceedings. Sarah continued her nightly visits to the riding club and her secret rendezvous with Tom. She seemed oblivious to my awareness of her betrayal. I played my role well, masking my feelings of heartbreak and anger. I focused on my work, taking solace in the company of my animals and the routine of the farm. Max and Bella, sensing my distress, stayed close, offering silent companionship. One morning, as I sat in Laura's office, we discussed the next steps. "We need to serve Sarah with the divorce papers," Laura said, her tone professional yet empathetic. "Once she receives them, she will have to respond, and we can proceed from there." I nodded, knowing this would be a pivotal moment. Laura handed me the papers, and I took a deep breath, preparing myself for what was to come. The following day, while Sarah was out, I placed the divorce papers on the kitchen table. I left a note beside them, explaining that I knew about her affair and that I had decided to end our marriage. I wrote that I would always cherish the good times we had shared, but that her betrayal had left me no choice. It was a difficult letter to write, but it was necessary. When Sarah returned home that evening, I watched from the living room as she found the papers. Her face went pale, and her hands trembled as she read my note. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "Michael," she whispered, her voice breaking. I can explain." I shook my head, feeling a wave of sadness and anger. "There is nothing to explain, Sarah," I said quietly. "I know everything. I have seen the photos, the videos. I know about you and Tom." She stared at me, her eyes wide with shock and fear. "How could you do this to us?" I asked, my voice cracking. "How could you throw away everything we had?" She sank into a chair, her body shaking with sobs. "I am so sorry, Michael," she cried. "I never meant for it to go this far. I was lonely, and Tom was there. It just happened." Her words felt hollow, and I struggled to find any sympathy for her. "We could have worked through anything," I said, my voice trembling. "But you chose to betray me instead." Sarah continued to plead, but my mind was made up. I walked out of the room, leaving her to face the reality of her actions. That night, I slept in the guest room, the weight of the impending divorce heavy on my heart. The life we had built together was over, and there was no turning back. In the days that followed, Sarah tried to reach out to me, attempting to salvage our relationship. She apologized repeatedly, begging for another chance. But I remained resolute, knowing that our trust had been irrevocably broken. Each interaction with her felt like reopening a wound, and I focused on moving forward with the divorce proceedings. Laura kept me informed of the legal process, guiding me through each step. "We need to ensure you're protected financially," she said during one of our meetings. "Sarah's infidelity will work in your favor, but we must be thorough." I appreciated her support and professionalism, knowing she had my best interests at heart. Meanwhile, I continued to put on a brave face in front of Sarah. I acted as though everything was normal, even as I prepared for the inevitable separation. It was exhausting, but I knew it was the only way to ensure a fair settlement. I could not allow my emotions to cloud my judgment, One evening, as I sat on the porch, I thought about the future. The farm, once a symbol of our shared dreams, now felt like a burden. I decided that after the divorce, I would sell the property and start fresh somewhere new. The thought of leaving behind the memories was painful, but I knew it was the right decision. The day Sarah received the official subpoena for divorce, she was blindsided. She had not expected me to take such decisive action, and her shock was palpable. "Michael, please," she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "We can work this out. I will do anything." But her words fell on deaf ears. I had given her my heart, and she had shattered it. In court, Laura presented the evidence of Sarah's infidelity. The judge reviewed the photos and videos, the damning proof of her betrayal. Sarah's lawyer tried to mitigate the damage, but the evidence was irrefutable. The judge ruled in my favor, granting me a significant portion of our shared assets and allowing me to keep the house until I decided to sell it. As the gavel fell, signaling the end of our marriage, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. It was done. The legal ties that bound us were severed, and I was free to move on. Sarah looked devastated, her face a mask of regret and sorrow. But my decision was final. There was no going back. With the divorce finalized, a new chapter of my life began. The farmhouse, once a haven of shared dreams, now held memories that were too painful to bear. I decided it was time to sell the property and move on. The process was bittersweet. Packing up our belongings felt like closing the door on a part of my life that had once brought me immense joy. But it was necessary for my healing. Sarah moved out, and I was left alone in the house that had once been filled with laughter and love. I spent my evenings packing, each item a reminder of a life that was now behind me. It was a somber task, but also cathartic. Letting go of the past was difficult, but each box packed was a step towards a new beginning. Max and Bella sensed the change. They stayed close to me, their presence a comforting reminder that not all love had been lost. As I walked through the empty rooms, memories flooded back. The joy of our early years, the quiet evenings spent together, the dreams we had built and watched crumble. It was a painful goodbye, but also a hopeful one. I was ready to start anew. I found a buyer for the farm relatively quickly. It was a young couple, excited to start their own journey on the property that had once been my sanctuary. As I handed over the keys, I felt a mixture of sadness and relief. This chapter of my life was officially closed, and I could focus on building something new. I moved into a small apartment in town. It was a modest place, but it was mine, a space where I could begin to rebuild. I filled it with reminders of my new life, photos of friends, art pieces that inspired me, and books that offered solace. It was a fresh start, and I embraced it fully. Work became my anchor. My veterinary practice flourished as I dedicated myself to my patients and their owners. The routine of caring for animals brought me a sense of purpose and stability. I expanded my practice, hired a few more assistants, and took on more clients. The support from the community was overwhelming. They knew what I had been through and offered their encouragement in business, helping me to rebuild not just my practice, but my life. In my free time, I explored new hobbies. Hiking became a passion. The quiet trails and the beauty of nature provided a sanctuary where I could clear my mind and find peace. I also picked up painting, something I'd always wanted to try. The creative process was therapeutic, allowing me to express my emotions in a way words never could. I reconnected with old friends and made new ones. Social gatherings, once a source of anxiety, became enjoyable again. I found myself laughing, sharing stories, and building new memories. The support from my friends was invaluable. They stood by me, offered advice, and listened when I needed to talk. It was a reminder that I was not alone. Therapy continued to be a crucial part of my healing process. Dr. Stevens helped me navigate the complexities of my emotions. It's okay to feel sadness and anger, she reminded me. But don't let them define you. Use them to understand your strength and resilience. Her words were a beacon, guiding me through the darkest moments. One evening, I received a call from Sarah. She sounded different, humbled, regretful. "Michael," she said softly, "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. For everything. I know I can't change what happened, but I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me." It was a moment of closure I hadn't expected. Forgiveness was not easy, but I realized it was necessary for my own peace. "I forgive you, Sarah," I replied, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. "But we both need to move on and find our own paths." I wish you the best." The call ended, and I felt a sense of finality. The chapter was truly closed. As the months passed, I found myself in a better place emotionally and mentally. I started to look forward to each new day, embracing the possibilities it held. I began dating again, cautiously at first, but with an open heart. Each experience taught me more about what I wanted and deserved in a relationship. I met someone new, Emily. She was kind, understanding, and had a passion for animals that matched my own. Our connection was immediate and genuine. We spent time hiking, exploring new places, and sharing our stories. It felt natural, and for the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful about the future. Emily and I took things slowly, allowing our relationship to develop organically. She understood my past and respected my need to heal at my own pace. Her support and companionship were a source of strength. We built a relationship based on trust, respect, and mutual admiration. It was a stark contrast to what I had experienced, and it made me realize how much I had grown. Life continued to improve. My practice thrived, my social circle expanded, and my relationship with Emily blossomed. I embraced the changes, finding joy in the little moments and hope in the future. The pain of the past had not disappeared, but it no longer defined me. I had learned to live with it, to use it as a foundation for my new life. As I stood on the porch of my apartment one evening, watching the sunset, I felt a profound sense of peace. The journey had been long and arduous, but I had come through it stronger and more resilient. The betrayal and heartbreak had shaped me, but they had also taught me the value of self-respect and the importance of moving forward. I knew there would still be challenges ahead, but I was ready to face them. With Emily by my side and the support of my friends, I felt equipped to handle whatever came my way. The future was bright, filled with possibilities, and I was excited to see where it would lead. In the end, the journey from betrayal to healing had been transformative. I had discovered a strength within myself that I never knew existed. I had learned to forgive, to let go, and to embrace the future with an open heart. My happiness was no longer tied to the past, but rooted in the present and the promise of tomorrow. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I took a deep breath and smiled. Life had brought me full circle, from heartbreak to hope. And in that moment, I knew that I was ready for whatever came next. The future was mine to shape, and I was determined to make it a bright and fulfilling one.